shut up.
First thing I want to do is welcome everybody here. I've got most of this city council. We can always do this now. Of course, we have a full thing. Glad to see everybody this morning. I appreciate everybody coming out. And, everybody had a good time this morning. Sorry to say that somebody that comes down to have breakfast this morning gets short. We had what they do. So we got them fighting on anyway, we hope to have a good retreat. I appreciate it to stay orderly and act as always. If you have any questions, just try to keep that order and don't ask a bunch of questions at the same time. That's hard to try to answer them. But feel free to ask any questions. We appreciate all the hard work our department heads, physical directors, volunteers, appreciate all the hard work and pieces have done in departments and faith out with years come to an end positively for a while. She who then veterans being one heck of a lot to the town. So saying that credit. That's a great program. We're not financially as strong as we wanted to be, but town is not in bad shape. Trying to get some things here. I don't know where we are and what we're going to get done. We're going to do everything. Each y'all's needs, and we might not get it done this year, get it done next year. Appreciate what you've done 100% my heart, because I've sat on y'all's seats. And I've been through some bad years with the town where I didn't get near what I requested because the money wasn't there. And I walked over and put out, but nobody knew it. Mr. Perlman is talking to you no matter what, always puts a smile on your face. I was a gunfire chief. I didn't accept that. I thought it I raised it. I had to stick all the time. Sale and that's just weird. But as I matured, I understood the whole thing. So all I can do is ask you to back and stay happy with. And even though it might sad way for some of us, we don't get everything. Navigate everything wrong. But anyway, thank you for being here. We're trying to make these 2 days comfortable and exciting for us. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and start. Thanks so much.
Kind of like Christmas. You don't always get what you, everything Saturday.
Thanks, Mayor. I think we're just going to get right to it. Wanda is to go through just a brief of everything for you, and then we're going to dig into our project.
Hi, can anybody hear me? Good morning. Thanks to everybody for being here. Also want to thank my fellow colleagues for all their hard work and trying to put this together. Our goal here is to provide Mr. Mayor, members of council with as much information about the town's finances and kind of where we go from there. I don't know, most of you probably know that I came from the private sector, so I don't always know the government way. Please feel free to educate. I don't mind that at all. But also being in the private sector, I was a credit analyst for years. So I looked at financial statements from a small mom and pop company to big corporation. And a lot of people think that us accountants are boring and we're bean counters and we don't have exciting jobs. But looking at everybody's financial statements, there's always a story behind the numbers. And so there's a story behind the town's numbers as well. They're not just numbers. So we kind of put together a few facts that I wanted to share with you. So here's just some of them behind the numbers at a glance. We had 33,000 visitors to our town website last year. We had 35,000 visitors to Edwards Community Center. Russ is in charge of 150 miles of roads and maintained. Jan worked on over 1,500 vehicles work orders last year. We issued over 3,900 permits. Fire and Rescue Department responded to just under 6,000 incidents. Miles of ditches and canals that we clean and help with drainage, over 50 miles. Special events attendees, 25,000. Total visitors to in-town limits, almost 5,000. Sports participants, 1,100. Camp participants, 626. Total money received in grants, 208,000. 940 feet of new pipes installed. We received 1.5 million emails. That's just unbelievable. We annexed 22 properties totaling 500 acres. Police calls, 96,000. Freedom of information requests, 341. There are a lot of things that everybody in the town is so managed. As we get started, I kind of want to give us a starting place with our fund balance. So this is kind of what we end up managing to. Our revenues and expenses are going to affect our fund balance. One of the unknowns is 621 audit. The numbers, I have not dug into them. There will be year-end adjustments, but just on the raw numbers, we're looking at an $8 million surplus. Budgeted a $10 million surplus. And the reason is the surplus is it's a short year, 6 months. Most of 80% of our revenue comes in the first 6 months. So we had 80% of our revenue, 6 months of expense. So this is a one-time thing because of the adjustment of the business. But it certainly helps after the 2020 year that we had replenished the balance. If I had to guess, this may come in closer to 6, which will still give us 17 million or so in fund balance. The way the financials are presented in the audit, they're classified, the fund balance is classified as committed and unassigned. The bonding agencies actually kind of had struggled with that a little bit, and they thought committed meant if committed it to a special purpose and could not use it. It is still free fund balance, but we have a fund balance policy that says we are going to reserve 20% of our revenues plus $3 million for disaster recovery, because that's a safe and sound. That's like putting that money aside. Is what that is. So we so that's, I kind of wanted to show you, because this is what the audit's going to look like. Now, again, this number should not change too much. The unassigned may go down if this $8 million ends up being 6. And I know for a fact June 30th, our payroll for June 30th was paid in July. So that's one of our bigger expenses, and that will be approved back to 2021. That's a pretty big expenditure that I know we'll have to make as far as audit. I don't really have, I'm hoping that we are on a break-even status for this year. I'm still looking like we might be a little bit short, 1-2 million. And it's really difficult when we've got probably $10 million worth of revenue that I expect to come in this last 2 months. So there's a few unknowns that I don't exactly know where we're going to end up this year. But certainly our fund balance is replenished some. So I kind of wanted just to give us a starting spot because that's where this is what we're looking to manage in the end. Right next.
Sorry.
So, when I look at revenues, I also want to identify risk areas, if and concentration. But if something were to go away, what we're looking at. So as you can tell from this paragraph, our 2 biggest sources of revenue are property taxes and licenses. You know, if I don't think our property tax revenue will go down. But I think we're still growing, still a little bit flat, but the state made a lot of changes to business licensing. We don't really know how that's gonna affect us. We think we'll be okay, but we'll kind of have to wait and see when May's over, kind of how that shakes out. But if some of you brought up, you know, what if the state makes more changes? What if businesses lobby and get some of that business license income or business license fee reduced? That's going to affect our financial picture. So I just like to kind of be aware of where our sources of revenue are, so we can kind of be aware of concentration. And to take that one step further, I looked at those 4 revenues as a percent of our total revenue since 2016. And you can, you know, it goes up and down, but it is a substantial portion of our total revenue. So, and sometimes the total revenues, see down here, go from 27, 36, and this is without our revenue without transfers from other funds. That kind of money is required. Any questions? Now we're going to get into revenues and I want to talk about the different categories. Maybe I will see it better in your book, but that's kind of small. I apologize. Obviously, we'll talk about property taxes. It looks like this year our tax base is about 259 million. Is what I'm looking at. I have projected a decrease over the budget from last year. I kind of dug in this year and looked at each county's assessments and each county's receipts, and I feel like projections were probably a little bit aggressive. I'm not going to meet all of those markers this year. I think one of the reasons is in Berkeley County and Charleston County, they have a local option sales tax. So by law, we are supposed to roll back 71% back to those counties for those taxes. So when I go there and buy something, my 1% sales tax goes to help some of you that live in the county tax. So I have to take that into consideration when I'm projecting revenue, because we're not going to get that revenue. Get it in local option sales tax money. We don't get it in those buckets. So you can't count it twice. And I kind of feel like that's where it looks like maybe that's where the error vehicles, I projected that a little bit higher than what the actual counties are, based mainly on actual emissions. I hear from some of the assessors that used car prices are going up. So I feel pretty good there. Also, it's a bigger distribution. There are a lot more cars, so I think, there's some errors there. It's not going to hurt you quite as much as those. Also wanted to make the point when we're looking at concentration that I got the top 10 taxpayers from Rochester County. And the top 10 taxpayers in Rochester County account for $5 million, a third of our revenue.
How many
That was kind of like, wow. Dominion actually pays $2 million. So they're a big taxpayer. They're not going anywhere. They're just based not on real estate, but on infrastructure. So, you know, that's the rest of them. I'm not exactly sure. Some of them were apartments. Sure what else. But the next one after 2 million was like 600,000. So there's not quite as much of a concentration there. But when you look at the top 10 and say $5 million, our bond agencies are going to do that. It's like wow. And so one of the things that I want to explain to them is the details around Dominion and what they are. Franchise fees, cable TV. I'm sure a lot of y'all are streaming now. We don't have cable TV. Consequently, our franchise fees for TV is going down. It's not a significant number, but it's the number. Electric and gas. We get Dominion's franchise fee once a year. Haven't gotten it yet. I was trying to talk to somebody to figure out what it's going to be, but haven't been able to do that. Berkeley Electric has consistently increased. I think they're up to about 100,000. And franchise fees are split 60% to general fund and 40% to roads. So this represents 60% of our business licenses. I left those projections the same as last year. As far as the budget goes, again, I think that we're kind of just going to have to see what that is. Right now, things are coming. We've got that we've collected so far in business licenses. We'll see how this goes. Building permits. I looked at some of this history, talked to Don. I feel like 950 is achievable. Again, it's one of those things that just don't quite know. If the economy would kind of come to a standstill and building would stop, obviously that number would go down. Some of the other stormwater plan reviews, same thing. I know there's plenty of flooding issues and all of that Ryan and us are working. Municipal court fines, that is, I increased that to 275. I expect that's going to trend somewhere close to 290 this year. But just to be a little bit conservative, I'm back down on that projection. I don't budget. I prefer not to budget grants that unless we absolutely know that we're getting something for the purpose. Intergovernmental revenues. I think the legislature is in session and trying to approve some things. Still don't know what our allocations for 8 subdivision things are. Interest income. I've been meeting with some investors or investment companies and trying to get our money back on in the treasury. Interest rate environment was such that we just had to let it roll off and they matured and just sit on the sidelines and wait for the rates to rise. And they're going now in the treasury starting. Recreational facilities, they total 293,000. I think that's pretty conservative. I worked with Amy on trying to project those. She has 50 people on what most of her fees are. Miscellaneous income. Of course, the biggest item there is the Maine School District of 780. I don't think there's a doubt in that number, so I focus on that. Along with those are small miscellaneous items. On the property rental fees, I'm actually probably 30,000 short on what we anticipate to receive on there, so that's a conservative number. It's got a relatively new tenant and the new restaurant, so that was not. And the bottom part of the revenues are transfers from other funds. We expect hospitality. I expect hospitality income to 5 million this year. We budgeted to take 2 million from the hospitality fund for the general fund. We typically take, or allowed to take, about $60,000 from state accommodation money. And, stormwater, we haven't done this in the past, but it's customary, because all the other departments provide some support to stormwater operation. I think that number comes to about 7.5% of administrative and finance budget, along with insurance parts there. The next to last item is ARP claims. We have, I think we project we will have 2.8 million left after some of the disbursements have already been approved at ARP money. We transferred that, we have proposed to transfer that into the general fund. And I believe we budgeted this last year. We haven't transferred yet, but sanitation. Sanitation, we have projected about 400,000. That brings our total revenue to 41,488,000. To look at our expenses, kind of have to go. So this is kind of the first stop, and kind of like to be conservative with these numbers. I think we're in a situation where we can look at your budget review, and I think that's probably a good practice that we do. But there things change all during the year. Shouldn't be locked into something. Questions? Again, this is kind of just my best guess. So I worked on this and saw this is an idea, and it's certainly up to y'all. But this is kind of what we're doing now. I would make one comment. Look at your spreadsheet. I know there's a lot of numbers on there, and we do have 6 month numbers in there, but it is 6 months. Some categories they're accurate for 6 months, and some categories obviously they're not because they come longer. We went back to actual for 20 and then 18 and 19, and that stretching back. But since 20 was such an odd year, just kind of wanted to give as much history and to kind of look at what we're doing and I'll turn it over to departments.
Yeah, no, next thing we plan to have each of the department heads, talk about their budget. It's gonna go in order. Administration first.
Good morning, everyone. We're holding pretty steady with the admin department. There are a few increases.
It's in the white one too.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
the white one?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. The details.
The details in the blue.
We looked at each of the department heads and looked at their ongoing budget and costs throughout the year. There aren't many increases except for a couple of line items. There's an increase of $5,000 for legal fees just because of lawsuits and expected expenses. Did request a few other items that we have prioritized as list items. One of those was computer hardware software for economic development to pursue a business retention and expansion program. But we're going to look into that further, research it more, and see software for that. Do have an increase of 2,300 by IT. That's just due to the increased cost of licensing software throughout town. You have an increase for physical exams. That's just due to turnover of employees where their positions require certain medical tests, such as drug tests, physical exams. We did move temporarily the general election expense because we've got one election coming up this coming year. So you will expect to see that return back to the budget for the following year. And that money was reallocated. And again, the other increases were just due to increased costs due to the dues, membership, training, and legal expenses.
Ask you a question. Where it says budget break, does that come from the
Actually, it was a combination of all of our efforts. So the line where you see the 20, those are the numbers that are requested by the last line, the 20, that is where cuts. And this is our proposed budget that does give balanced budget.
or in something that concerns for your department?
The two biggest items we cut are more, we acknowledge them more wish list items. And like I said, one of them is additional software. But we have a agreement back to we're not sure we can, but further. And the other item was for videography, and as well as just have a portfolio of film, because it's amazing the things that local governments get asked for, and a lot of times Mary and Michael both asked for videography and photos for organizations and companies out in, as well as other organizations to use in their presentations, but also for us to market this, to put our name out there and say, hey, we're young about in particular, this is a great place to work. Let me show you.
Madam, any other department first, up in that department first. Do we do any kind of performance-based budget? Start at the last year. From this, see the last year, or what steps you take to go through what we actually spent. Stop spending.
From my seat, my perspective, I do look at the last year's actuals that finance provides each year. And I also look to where we are at the time. Are we trending up? Are we steady? Are we really in a good spot that I can help? So I do look at that. I know that a lot of times it's hard to estimate where we might need something. Particularly this past year, we've seen a lot of increases in cost in everyday items. And for admin, that includes office supplies, that includes break room supplies, that includes toilet paper for the bathrooms. I mean, it's just across the board. But we have seen a lot of just for everyday basic supplies. So those areas I can see where I was coming But at the same time, I wasn't comfortable increasing the amount.
I think part of the question was to look back and see where we're trending over a period of time. And, which I'm assuming that we probably have maybe an analysis as to why. How you do that for the last 5 years. That 18, 19, all of a sudden, that 2021. Those 4 years ain't nothing to fight.
This, and I, exactly. The last budget year, which was the last budget, 6-month budget, was very difficult to consider that in looking at actuals. We're not sure what those numbers are yet. In 2022, I mean, excuse me, 2020, we dealt with COVID. Things are very, it's been a little more challenging. But yes, to answer your question, maybe not exactly what space budgeting, yes, we look at actuals going back to last quarter.
I don't feel like I would completely recognize that all of our departments don't have some part. That's not the problem. Typically that's what we would start with. And most of our have a breakdown for health expense and operating expense. It's a 5-to-1, 6-to-1, 7 personnel that cost people as opposed to operating expenses. So start talking about based budgeting. Other departments, most departments, get a real program cutting. Nobody. I just know one department for our operating the personnel expense. Personnel expense is 1.8, and our operating expense is almost 2. It's the only department in town. So every other department spends 6, 7 times to operate. I would hope that when we have all of our departments have the opportunity to go back and look program stop. Here are some of the things that requested that my preference would be to request from us and us side. But when I hear some requested, didn't prove when we get the second part of the process, some of them sound like videography. Heard a whole lot of money. But it just seems to me that looking back at what we spent within this very department, that we're just rolling over all. And yeah, requested. They may actually be priorities to council. I think we want to say, I've gone through everything. Yes, this is the lowest priority item of my budget. Therefore, I'm okay with not being. If it's not your lowest priority, it's up to us to find whether it's within your department or somebody else's department. Pay for what is it?
I guess what else? You see something on this.
I don't think there's any way to look at it. It's like you look at, some things happen. I mean, training in 2018, 18,000, 9,000, 5,000, 5,000 state, 5,000. I don't know why in 2018, 5,000. census. But my hunch is that I just want to make sure all of our departments are looking for ways exactly that. Nobody, if at some point somebody decided no reason to spend $1,000 on training, spend five. My gut is each department has some operating items, places to cut, because it might have been a good idea. Team, it's not priority.
Here's a thought. If I look at 18, I just look at salary and know there's gotta be a math problem. How many? We go from roughly 760,000 salary and of 18. What creates that 550,000 a year, 4-year
Off,
increase?
off the cuff, just off the cuff, and added a couple of new positions of admin since that time. Maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, since that time we've added 2 additional folks in IT, plus the IT department from school. We added a 3rd position in HR. Yes. And we also added, now remember, the admin department also includes, it's not just employees, but includes all council in there, it's all teams. They also include their secretary, that can have added, so that's another position. Trying to think, economic development, so you had some additional positions created system.
Okay.
And those salary wages. Okay, you're just looking at the salary and wages line item, but
Yeah.
the total personnel expense includes the entirety of.
Yeah.
So I think we got the house both on this back. So have very limited control of other items. Fire out. So I did this. Fault adding a number of successful. Or the managing adding to account for over half of so
And you're on the sales.
Instances, manual. So, the time. He's got, that's great. But he doesn't have. So.
From going from being hired, not certified, probably 25,000 per employee. Oh, yes.
discuss the training count all 2018 8,020 that is half 9,000 that is almost in half 5,000 5,000. I'm not asking you to cut it down. I'm just suggesting from these other items, you probably also be cutting.
But I'm saying that, you know, you don't put enough money. But even though Pray that he will us. Never do. Richard does the same. Really. These people have to also our friends. So, every, yes, you and of course. So even though you might have a full house, you two things didn't have any money, but that's what comes schools are much pay to have a back to so much trade. And also any just need to go see that. But that's
Next, March, it's funny, and Ron is,
You got the finance, budget in front of you. Our request, initially in personnel, we discussed additional funds to take care of a couple of employees who stepped up, taking on some other responsibilities. We wanted to take care of them. The other, some of the other bigger items, we split contractual services out between, contractual services and audit fees. Audit fees, I have it 40,000, assuming that some of the 621 audit fees might spill over into that fiscal year. I think generally it'll probably be at 33 is what I'm thinking. So we may be able to reduce or adjust that after the first, after we get that audit completed. Contractual services, ADP is our new service provider for payroll. It's a good thing for the town. Certainly with the number of employees we have, it certainly helps. Isn't an easy transition, but got that done. There's other, and those are not just, those are really services that benefit the whole town, but we're taking that into our finance budget. Encode, Citizen Serve, some other software there. But the other items we reduced and reclassified. We took training away and added it media conference and training, so it's just a little simpler. We did a net reduction of $1,000 there. Small increases just to like balance that increases in costs. Office supplies, we really try to watch what we're spending. We weren't spending this much, so we a lot of those line items, several of those line items. So we had a net request of about $1,000, but some of those reclassification adjustments. Question.
First of all, thank you for all your work getting us here. At first glance, when I looked, it struck me as odd because budget recommendation from staff is greater than what you requested, but I want to make sure I understand why. $12,000 should be what we requested. Is that solely accounted by expected spike over time?
Yes, sir.
And I realize this is, it looks like you held the line on something else that we have control over. Well, $1,000 salary. Looking at operating expenses is the easiest place to cut. Sending people out in the parking lot. Definitely thank you, boss. And this is before you were here, so you know this is when I look at half of the finding The jump between the 2020 actual and the 2022 budget is almost $100,000. Thousand spent on operating and finance, budget. It's like we're actually going down. Expenses, a couple thousand this year. Do you have any idea what happened from the actual budget?
Yes, sir, it would be the contractual services. ADP, they started the ADP transition or plans for that budget year. And I don't know what the initial projections were for what ADP is gonna cost. But it's 56,000. I assume the audit fees were kind of rolled in there too, so you can take that out. So it's about 75 of that for line item. That there was that office supplies went from almost 5,000 to 30,000, and I don't know why. But like I say, the biggest item was an increase in factual services, which I'm sure is relative to ADP. Councilman McIntosh, we also had talk about personnel. We had a lot of personnel changes this last year in the finance department. I see a long time ago. Clerk, she left, had some other kind of finance, a lot of shit around.
I think that's so.
But I do want to take care of some of those people that have stuff.
See, I'm spending it. That's what I was thinking while we're talking about all this. I was thinking, talking about what?
We just got the CPI rate from the state last month, and it was 4.7. So that actually affects our obviously it's it stats. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay.
I think probably have 5 All right, we currently have 5 clerks. Honestly, I that goes to say, not just based on report cards, does work, I'll say that. Probably because someone's out, wasn't a problem. Chief right that's how conditions problem works 3 times in the past. So I think when I discuss this with Rhonda, further recommendations possibly having report card. That's either way, we're still doing reduction this year. We requested a reduction by $1,000. I think probably next year further reduction. One thing we have on there is your time. So we think just a minute, drink. I'll leave the position for next. Or, yeah. Give her time, days out, they can shift. Most of the time. So it's quite actually out of production. Further, experiences up by 1,000 estimates. IT 500. Currently, we're running at 5%.
Judge, other than yourself, how many, judges do we have? Did we originally, say a year ago, had 4, 6 months ago?
But before I came in full time, there was still part time. Just for as far as like do the work, do the judges rotate. Like chief judge.
Judge, looking at your request is about a 7.5% decrease from last week. Right. So efficiently, check coming at 5%. So essentially, fund 5% under. So incorporate, we take your request, incorporating that with 5% budget. 7%. The recommendation is from the administrator.
Just where we were. Sorry.
Make sure I understand. Right now, working for you, for how many persons? There's one of those for it'll take a while to leave and say that stays well. Yeah.
I guess I can ask questions.
No, that's
Lawyers say it. That's a lot worse.
if we take the cut further than 75%, it'll be down to the loose person. And the not really ready. That shouldn't be directed. But on one for the discussion, but the council said in the personnel expenses for clerks, we discussed and judges. Full-time judge, got 3 associate judges, part-time. Used to have 4 part-time. Had significant time, significant personnel. By law, our judges are appointed for supposed to be appointed for set time. As Jameson 1 year to And we have one other judge, Judge Tyler, who is halfway term. We've got two other judges whose terms have expired. Not ideal. Supposed to have the terms of five and expired for a long time. I don't want to engage the Jameson discussions today. I think as a council, up to us to appoint a period of time in the statute, no more than 4 years, which I'm to eliminate. So, we got that out. And, it's a potential to save, potential to save.
I would say thank you, energy, very tight. Eliminating justice. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to add on. There's a more talk about just extending just be uncomfortable. Especially, purpose of the court is not just it's to justice, but our revenue has a steep decline. So, same time, there's Jameson's actually cutting running under budget, huge gap. Expenses shrinking. Point that out.
Yeah.
Only really. Oh, really? I will point out training. So, a lot of our so, also put $200. Yeah. There's two positions. One thing that I am bringing to and asking for the council salary, sure everything. Local jurisdictions, Old Charleston, Creek, there's two private ones that are now doing exactly.
things are. Everything. Certified inspector. So, two folks I have. So, state hall, got stay with me. So we done that. You clarify. Saying. Some have, and, I bet just kind of. Position. Private. Little position. Side.
So the reason is not that they're shifting community housing. Employees.
I had a position of. I had two applicants, they both called there.
If we were, so so if you were so anyway.
Yes, sir. We could do it in Virginia, sir. Yep. Gonna do it for dignitaries and VIPs, but I do judges, I do VIP. They were paying for it, it was coming in through, they would pay the town, maybe a couple of paychecks. Sheriff's office, Valley provides that service now, so we don't have that. Sheriff's office. We're too busy.
So your greatest concern is the salary cap. I see that your budget request added budget recommendation.
See that too. Yeah, that's the same out of the South, but apparently your opponents will come with a projected decrease and stuff. You say, well, we must be able to decrease it further.
There's a bit of a backstory. 2022 budget shows milestone four. There was an error in addition. It should have or additional building. I don't plan on using building inspector. What I'm trying to hire for now.
So if I'm understanding you right now, you budgeted for a position you don't intend to fill. Because that's what it's like to do. So we actually had a number wrong. Because we
Maybe not, another one. See. I can get a position. Should my goal is all the inspectors to observe. So somebody that's have all the license. They got all the license. Send them all. We need help. So, right now, the salary starts at slightly less than they get all their residential. Go at $30. Get two commercial. So that gets me a rough 48, 49 dollars. Fully certified inspector. I think the most Charleston, 65. Alan's got. They're basically the trainers. We spend the money to train them. They go somewhere else. That's
But thank you.
they're waiting for my guys to grab. Program.
It's happening in other departments. Well, I would say welcome aboard, obviously. Down, wow, congratulations. Welcome to having this.
No question.
One other question, just because I'm not understanding, when we talk about positions outsourcing, there's certain areas where that makes a lot of sense. So, add value sometimes. That's other cases, especially in certain services, constituents, services, they in some sort of alignment. How does your building inspection service impact our ability or folks' ability here in some? If you're understaffed, you impact the progress of work across the businesses. That's what I'm getting at. So if we have a reputation, we're not able to schedule folks who are investing. Are we not driving?
Well, I'm going to meet for
We're all inspectors first. We all see this work.
But I do want five ways.
But when we get to this, we get here, the next one is property across the line. The higher salaries. Y'all get calls. Like, sometimes we get things calls with fine. So I hear from the developers about what that's all that. You know, it's not all positive, but a lot of it is. And sometimes I see you complain about something what required as far as follow up. I always ask the question, how does this in Somerville to other places? It's always extraordinarily positive response. um, I mean, I don't know how to invest in developing. Say not present, it's too. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say that?
It says church. Next.
Thank you, Mayor. Junior department. Requested a little bit of operational. Increase. Two of the vehicle repairs, gas and oil. Driving vehicles more, using more gas and oil, so increases were requested. There's also increasing students conference and training. We've got 4 licensed engineers on staff. We're supposed to start having training to accommodate that. Only operation. Okay,
20,000 in salaries. That's reflected in the request. And then a reduction. Even from. You let me know how that. Is. 14. So the 2023 budget request is 585. That's up 20,000 from that budget in 2022. And below both of these budget recommendation. On the wrong page.
No, you're looking at it, I'm trying to tell.
Right, unless you have a different sheet. You know, I have 565, 22, 585 request, 550 recommendation.
So 20,000 wasn't.
That was the new position.
There's an increase in position salary.
So the 20,000.
If I may,
The budget of 565.
thanks, our current, obviously the 2020 budget has some salary based on, I believe our building maintenance, person, we have changed
I got
staff there. That's.
Let me sure
Okay.
you're okay with recommendation.
Yes, official. Position.
We based everything on current salary as of May.
Just to ask a question on salaries, because everybody's putting salary increases in each department. If it would work better, but the salaries the same, just requested salary is an increase all the sometimes, and instead of going to each department, these departments, you know, how much we pay, how much they pay outside, for all the departments, because it kind of gets diluted. Okay.
So the question is, the budget is what we need to do. You know, I'd like to line by line. The budget has 2%. So for that's about 2%. $20,000 is not.
Right, and we will get into discussion. But you'll see the increase in personnel. And part of that would not necessarily say COLA, but some of the things that it was something there. So discussion.
I realize not necessarily cross.
But I think what the two aspects, if I understand, one is an increase itself. Okay, which, but there may be a 1 year to the next year difference in salary. Addition, staffing, a whole bunch of different reasons that seems to me valid for sure. If we look at an increase, it might be easier not to have that in a budget or have it shown as a lump sum item. If overall salaries were increased by 2%, it would add this to the budget. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Bob?
Right, because we're putting this in the budget, but when we go back and talk about salary increases, this gets lost. And we're talking about increases, where if we had all this in one place.
Well, you're not gonna see individual salary increases in this.
That's what I'm saying,
Okay,
because Russ wants a 5% increase, and Don wants a 7%, and Amy wants a 3%, and then we go to start talking about COLAs. We lose all that.
right, and as I said, you're gonna see
Okay.
those requests in this budget booklet here. This was a starting point, something that we at least had plugged into the budget. We have a balanced budget, so there's money there. Obviously, it's not the money that everybody's asking for, but there's something there that we can work with based on what they're asking for
Okay.
in the details.
Any more questions on operations for engineering?
Sorry.
I do want to go into my capital items. I did request $1.5 million for road improvements and resurfacing. We've got 3 sidewalk projects that are ready to go to construction. That was $941,000. I think those were also recommended in the budget.
Is this in this book now?
No, actually, our capital is separate, and we've got all of our capital on one sheet. Is that correct? I'm trying to flip through to
Is
that.
that the first?
Is it your section?
But is that separate from the
Yeah.
$41 million budget?
No, well,
Oh, I
we
got
don't have any capital plugged into the $41 million budget.
Correct.
So, yeah,
Okay. Well, I just, yeah.
So do we want to wait till we get there?
I think so, because we've got it all grouped
Okay,
together.
that's fine. That's all I got.
There's a lot of vacuuming.
The cleanest place. on
I
earth.
know.
Say there's politicians here, it's gotta be dirty.
Blowers. Okay. Next is, we've got communications, which is gonna be cheap, right? If there were no further questions for us.
I don't have any further questions, but I would say that, you know, and I know we've added positions, but we're, you know, you can't refight, or you can refight battles, but, you know, I lost a battle on adding at least one of these positions, but we are paying about 50% more in salaries and engineering than we were in 2018, gone from 356 in salaries in 2018. You know, the budget recommendation was 553. I mean, that's a 50% increase in salaries, and of course, people cost money, but the reality that I think all of our department heads should keep in mind is when you come to us for pay increases, if you add less positions, you'll get more pay increases. Every time you add a position, the people that are already working here have much less chance of a salary increase. So, well, I've been trying my best, but I usually can't get a majority. It's usually just me and Councilman Bailey trying to stop adding positions. And the less positions you add, the more we can pay people.
Councilman McIntosh, if you go back,
We can't get the work done.
if you go back to the
We can't.
revenue
That's a
side of
service
things,
issue.
you'll see a lot of the work engineering department does is directly related to in stormwater plan reviews. And you'll see those fees have jumped up significantly from year to year, which illustrates the workload increasing from year to year, which puts on the need for additional people to cover that workload. So, and we are asking for additional increases in those fees later on in this retreat.
I'm aware.
To justify that. So
I'm just saying,
justification is there, and it's illustrated pretty clearly.
I'm just saying, the more people that work here, the less people make. That's
The
unavoidable.
less service we provide, the more work. It depends on what you.
We got 35 houses going up over there in Germantown. They already started on.
I'm well aware.
So that requires more work for public works. You can't do it with the same amount of people.
Money, the revenue is finite. The ideas for spending money is infinite.
We've got communications. Chief Wright.
Okay, communication. Doug?
Yes, sir. You can skip me. I'm just gonna stand up so I can see all the council members. That's okay. Perfect. Communications, please. First of all, Rhonda, Dan, Lisa, Madeline, tremendous job on how you do what you do, especially after coming up with what we had happen over the past year with turnover. But amazing job, Lenny. Thanks for setting everything up. Communications. I might make you happy today, Councilman McIntosh.
You might.
Money, but I don't think I will. I want to talk communication a little bit. We didn't increase in much of anything. I do have one capital request that I'm gonna ask for communication, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Chief Waring. I think a lot of times people forget that communications is the fire department as well. And I just want to kind of help educate and get in the weeds a little bit, because I think it's one of those things that people forget about. They don't realize how important it is that we have that vital resource right at our fingertips. So we Somerville, we're one of less than 10 agencies in South Carolina that's called PSAP, which is where they actually have a call answering center that dispatches police and fire. And with that being, that's a tremendous asset to us. It's a tremendous asset because we don't need to be a consolidated dispatch. We sit in 3 counties, where there's only 3 municipalities in South Carolina that sit in 3 counties, North Charleston being another one. One of the biggest regrets they ever had, I spoke to one of the top leaders last week, was they wouldn't consolidate dispatch. So I say this, we have the best people working in there. We have 20 dispatchers. We have the best equipment money can buy. Obviously, we're working on facilities and whatnot for the future, but with technology comes upgrades, licensing. Every time something new and the latest and greatest comes out, we don't necessarily get it. We may want it, but in our case, it comes to the point where it's a stopgap where we have to have it or we won't be able to function. And the fire department, they have all their trucks are networked with our dispatch center, all their police cars. So everybody has a tablet with the grids of the town. It has our RMS, which is our CAD reporting system, and it has all your information about your house, about your families and whatnot. And all this stuff's live streaming into the trucks and into our cars. And it's vital because there's not a third party like a consolidated dispatch that's going through their fingertips and then having to go right back out, through 3 or 4 different people. It goes right from us straight to police or fire department. So Richard and I don't know that it's ever been the case that I've worked here with the fire, and Chief Waring, you probably were, but it was when I was a young kid wearing a police uniform here. But Richard and I have never collaborated to ask for stuff. It's always the police department, for communications. My IT guy who runs our IT for police and fire, he comes out of my budget, as does all the communication. So we need to really look at the future. And I know this year might not be the most novel year to ask for anything like this, but I think looking into next year and in the future, we need to look at having a chief that's over emergency communications. We have Sean Gibbons in that position right now. He holds the same certifications as Jim Lake, who runs Charleston County Consolidated Dispatch Center. And what people have to remember is he's not just running IT, he's running all the radios in our hands, in our trucks, in our cars. He's running all of our body worn cameras. Anything that's technological that's in our cars, we have modems in our cars.
There's better than 500 computers at his fingertips that he has to fix. He has one person working for him. One person that's a ticket person, and that person, guess what? Both of them, they answer to the police and fire department. So you can imagine somebody's Bluetooth falls off their printer in their car, or any of those minor things, or as much as if our phone system goes down, these two people, any given time, day or night, 7 days a week, 365, they have to jump in and get into action. And what we need is moving forward, and like I said, maybe not this year, but definitely we look forward to future next year, is to make Sean a chief that will oversee communications by itself. Right now, the police department is kind of like we oversee it because it's in our budget, but it's not fair to the fire department. It's not fair to the police department that I have guys in my budget that have to go fix and network his fire departments or fix their equipment. So we really need to have something that's helping us as a model for the future. So that, and also another person who handles just tickets, help tickets. That's going to be your trouble tickets. And I just want to make sure everybody understands clearly here. Lenny does an amazing job, and I won't take anything away from that man. Lenny handles town hall, town facilities, town hall, court, whatnot. The police department and the fire departments, he doesn't do anything with them. Now, he's available to assist us when we need help, and he knows a lot of that stuff. Radio communications is not in his wheelhouse. It's not, and that's what we're looking for the future. So I just want to make sure, I don't want to make confused that why are we going to have another IT director? We're not. We need to have someone who's over emergency communications for the town of Somerville. It's a vital position, especially in a we have something like a hurricane or some type of disaster. If we have a rail car that goes off and has poisonous chemicals in it, anything like that, that thank God has not happened, but could happen in this town. We need to be prepared to make sure we can get our people there, get there safely, and make sure we're able to keep up with it. So all that being said, that is not in the budget this year. It was proposed and it was slashed. But I have no problem with that because I understand where we are, and I know there's other things that are important to happen. So about the communications budget, over time, we asked for it to go up a little bit, $4,000. I say ladies and gentlemen, we have 3 male dispatchers, 17 females, and they work their tails off. We have a lot of times when there's mandatory overtime. We usually try to keep 4 people in that room at a time. So there's times when they have 1 go down or 2 go down. In other words, they're sick or they have training, something like that. And we have to have people to fill that gap. Maintenance agreements, we asked for $45,000 more for maintenance agreements. And again, what is the maintenance agreement? Obviously, we have software. You buy the software, but they have to maintain that software. So you pay a license agreement to keep that software. If you don't maintain that agreement, they will cut it off. And there's always upgrades. Just think of Apple for a minute. Apple changes the charging port on their phone. What does everybody have to do? They have to go buy a new charging port, and it makes more money for Apple. So that's, you have to kind of look at the maintenance agreements. When they add upgrades and stuff, you're paying for those upgrades. Training and meetings, I'll make sure you understand, training is going to be, our meetings and conference training. That's when we send somebody to APCO or one of these type of certification trainings that we have for our CAD system or radios. The other training is any type of advanced training that we have in-house. So we asked for a couple of small increases there. And office supplies, we're just, again, we're running into situations where things cost more with the supply chain. So we've asked for a little bit more there. Does anyone have any questions about communications?
Well, Chief, buddy, I appreciate you bringing that communications issue, the potential personnel change for chief communications, I think what you call it. Bringing that to our attention, and particularly in the context of looking forward, not just sharing it with us for the first time when we're about to take first reading of budget. But when I look at what's before us, I'm missing where it was slashed. I'm looking at, you requested 926,000 in salaries for communications, and the recommendation was 905, so a reduction of 21,000. But then under operating expenses, it's showing that you requested 275,000 and are getting 308. They're actually showing that your budget is going to be 30 for communications is going to be about $37,000 more than you requested. So I'm assuming that the cost of this communications chief is not the
It's
$11,000
No, sir.
cut in salaries.
No, sir, and with all respect to finance, I know they had a daunting task, a lot of this stuff at the last minute. I did send John classifications for communications chief, for an IT help desk person, which would be a network administrator, kind of like what Sean does now, Gibbons, and also for a digital media coordinator that would fall under him as well.
What does all that cost?
They're all in pay grades, so I know numbers, 112, 116, 202. It's probably gonna cost about $180,000 for 3 positions. But I did not put,
In salary or salary and overhead?
that is salary. That's salary. That's not included. I think that, again, I'm just trying to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. We need it today. But I think the police department needs some more things that I think are gonna surmount that. And I'll talk about that in a moment.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
if line item by line item, I'm not gonna do, but one line item.
Yes, sir.
If I look at maintenance agreements,
Yes, sir.
maintenance agreements are going from 125,000 to a budget request of 170 to a budget recommendation of 215, which is up $90,000.
So what we have here is, if you see off to the side, it should be on there. Yeah,
Very
right
small
here,
print.
the 42,000. These are projected upgrades that we're gonna have to have. You see to the right.
No, I understand.
Okay, I'm
So
sorry.
I'm assuming
Yes, sir.
that if those numbers are accurate, the rest of this budget is down.
Correct. I do have a capital expense I want to request, but
That was the only point. There's a $90,000 jump in something that we have to do. And it appears to me that not going line item by line item, the general budget is down $60,000 or something to that order for the rest of the budget.
yes, sir. Moving on to capital expense request for communications. Fusus software, it's a 3-year contract at $75,000 a year for $225,000. I'm gonna explain what it is, but I also want to explain too, we already applied for a grant for this, and we did get awarded $13,000 towards that $225,000. I know it's a drop in the bucket, but it was with the intent for us to have, we applied for it to get more money, but they did give us something better than nothing. So what Fusus is almost a real real-time crime and event incident center. And what it is, or you see on TV, all this craziness on CSI and whatnot, on television as well. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the ability for our dispatch center for police and fire to be able to hone in real time to selected camera systems anywhere in town. So for $75,000, let's say we get 1,500 camera ports. What I can do is I can go to different apartment complexes, businesses in the town that we see we have problems at, and we can put a module into their already existing surveillance cameras. And what that does is that gives us a live real-time feed from that complex or that location straight into our dispatch center. And the way it works is it's integrated with our RMS system. So when a 911 call comes in, it'll automatically pick the camera that's closest to that incident. And all the dispatcher has to do is click on that. It'll give them a real-time live feed. They can send that real-time live feed to the police cars or the fire trucks. Let me tell you how important this is. If we can get something like this. Obviously, we're looking towards the future, and I think this is peanuts compared to what it can do. Well, let's say you have a fire call. How many times are we sending fire engines, heavy apparatus to these locations, 2 and 3 trucks deep sometimes, and we have a camera system there, and we can see there's no smoke showing. And just to kind of have a real-time feed into that. If we have a call for a shop that we had a person catching yesterday, Hudson Square. Luckily, our officers were on scene and apprehended the man with the assistance of a citizen in less than 1 minute. But let's say we get a call like a shooting or whatnot, and it's dark, and someone calls in and says they see a guy wearing a black shirt and white pants. Well, that's somebody who's seeing something that they think they saw, and perception is not reality. Whereas I can go into that, we can back up that video in real time. We can actually watch the incident occur, replay it, screenshot it, we could share it. It's endless. There's a feature on Fusus where we could have teachers at Somerville High School, they sign on in DD2 where their actual cell phones will act as alert systems. And if there's an active shooter in the school, all they have to do is push a button on their phone, it'll automatically live, if they choose to, it'll go straight into their phone and it'll record everything that's going on in that room straight into our dispatch center. $75,000 a year. Again, if we have businesses, let's say we have 1,500 reports that we put into these locations. Let's say we only have 1,500. Let's say we have other businesses in the town say, hey, I want in on this. I want my store over on Norway Central. I want Chuck and Shack. I want it to be seen or whatever. You know, if they choose, we're not talking about homes. Homes is a different, dwellings are a different rodeo. But if they want to have this, they can buy into this and get that port put in their camera at their cost to our benefit. So, any questions?
Just to piggyback off of that last example, do you project this could actually pay for itself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The city of North Charleston is getting it also. They have a lot of money. We all know that. They have a lot of commercial. But we've been tag teaming with them on a lot of things because a lot of their crime, their suspects and victims correlate to Somerville now. There's no boundary line. It's Somerville, North Charleston. And they don't see it as a town or a city. It's just going a block over. I'm in North Charleston. So if Fusus comes online in North Charleston, they will be able to look at all our cameras from their dispatch, from the real-time crime center they're building. They're paying $5.5 million for. We're doing it for $75,000. Actually, 225 minus 13. And they'll be able to look at ours. We'll look at theirs. Not that I want to see anything in North Charleston, but if you have a crime that's occurring and it moves that way, that we're dealing with the same suspects. There is also AI involved with it, artificial intelligence. And I throw this out there, and I don't want to get too scary on theory here, but if I type in the word bicycle and I wanted to look for a bicycle between 11 and 12 o'clock, it'll literally find every bicycle and screenshot every bicycle from 11 to 12 o'clock on that camera system. And it's not 100%, but nothing's 100%. Any questions?
How's that work into your high-speed policy that you're changing, brothers?
Excuse me?
Is that going to help your high-speed policy that you're changing?
Oh, I don't know. I think anything helps, anything we do. But, all right.
So it's 200,000 plus 75,000 a year.
It's the 75,000 a year for 3 years, which is 225,000
Okay.
minus 13,000.
Because it's a 3-year contract.
Yes, sir, 3 years. We'll be the first and second agency, us in North Charleston, the first one in South Carolina to use it. We've all throughout Florida. Metro Nashville Police Department picked it up. Minneapolis picked it up after the riots. All Minneapolis City is on it now. So,
But if you get another entity like a school district or whatever to sign on, they pay a fee
They pay
to
a
sign
fee.
on, that reduces our cost.
it would potentially in the future could, but we're locked in for 3 years. Potentially, I can go back and renegotiate that. So what?
Sounds like a great program.
They did. We had the fire department involved in this. Chief Bio was involved. He was involved with the onboarding, as was Ms. Wallace and Ms. Robinson. They both went to the demos and they were thoroughly impressed. We sent somebody to Atlanta Police Department with North Charleston Police Department, and they watched it in real time at Atlanta PD. So it does work.
So the cost that you're talking about, public safety, period.
Period.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, sir. I would love to get into those cameras at Walmart.
So this is not, this is just not something you're asking for police department.
This is communication,
Service.
strictly.
Yeah.
All right. Want to keep going? Go back up. Oh, I got you. Go backwards.
That's pretty.
All right. So, not that anybody needs a history lesson on what's going on around us. But when Mayor Berlin came in 1972, he had 4,000 people that are residents in this town. And the thought was always, and always has been around town, if I pay a person $1 an hour and I have somebody that'll do it for 60 cents an hour, why would I pay a man $1 an hour? And unfortunately, that theory is unsustainable. And I think Councilman McIntosh is 100% correct. Now, I say that gloatingly because I have 161 employees under my watch. And I know there's a lot of you all who have very small span of control, and you probably feel the police department gets everything, and I'm sorry for that. But I can tell you that the return on investment is there. So when we talk about Somerville, 54,000 people in the town. Last census, I don't think it's true. I think we're closer to 58 or 60. I think all of you would agree. Somerville encompasses 4 different zip codes: 29483, 85, 86, and 456. 483 is the most populous zip code in South Carolina with 67,000 people. 85 is 61,765 people. 486, 53,039. And our newest zip code, I'm sorry, that was our newest zip code. And the next one is 456, 42,731. So in the actual Somerville, they have Somerville addresses on their postcard, on their envelopes. There are 224,535 people. So when I talk about this number, we only know that what we have for tax income comes from the town. We have other things that are generated other fees, but when I'm speaking to the facilities ad hoc committee the other day, I was explaining to them, we're not policing 54,000 people. We're policing 235,000 plus people. That's who we're policing. People whose car gets broken into at Walmart, they live in Lincolnville. We're providing that service. People who get robbed in Hudson Square or anywhere else, God forbid, they may not be from our town. So that's who we're policing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I say all this because we're being enveloped by the city of North Charleston and Goose Creek. There's 22 square miles in Goose Creek. I think there's roughly 81 square miles in North Charleston, and they're going up 61. And I'm not talking about getting Jesse's world, but I say all this because we're being enveloped, and we need to not be asleep at the wheel. We need to be looking at the future. We can't be sitting here today looking at the same projections and over projections and under projections that we've done for so long. I have never, in 27 years of being a police officer, 25 in the town of Somerville, they have asked for police officers every single year that I can remember. Every single year. They may not have gotten them, but every single year. I am coming to you today not asking for one single police officer, and I need them. I'm coming to you today because I preach to my people what are the 3 R's. The 3 R's are my recruitment, my retention, my retainment and retirement. That's what I'm up against. Okay. So when I have South Carolina Highway Patrol, who I've hired probably close to 20 of their troopers over the years, they just came out 2 weeks ago, effective July 1, they were going to be the highest paid police agency in South Carolina. I already had troopers, the Highway Patrol has already called my people that have left and asked them to come back. I have one that has already told me he's leaving, and it's all because of he wants to be a trooper again and make the money. I told you the other day I was full. I jinxed myself. Monday morning, I had 4 resignations. So I told you the other day, it doesn't last long. But yesterday, Reggie Burgess from the City of North Charleston Police Department came out and said that his city council made them the highest paid law enforcement agency in South Carolina, and that is true. They're going to be paying patrolmen up to $67,000 a year. I just hired 10 of them. Now, if I can go back to where I came from and make $15,000 more dollars, then I'm gonna be gutted. We have a pretty good starting pay. If you're a certified police officer, you start out at $45,218. The problem with that is if I hire a certified guy with 2 years experience, he makes $45,218. If I hire a guy with 22 years, I just hired a sergeant from the city of North Charleston with 23 years of experience. He's making $45,218 because he did not want to work in a certain environment. He's making the same as a guy that just got out of high school 3 years ago. It's not fair. And I'll go one step further. If you look at our pay scale, this goes for every department head in here. I speak for all of you. We have a low, a mid, and a high. That's the way it's labeled. A low pay range, mid pay range, high pay range. It is a fractured, broken system. There is nowhere that I have ever seen in the town of Somerville, definitely not from the police department, that explains how you get to from low to mid to high. The only way you can get it is through COLA raises, and if you were lucky enough that we had some overhead, some merit raises. We have longevity. It's a nice touch, but it stops at 20 years. And we don't even know if it'll be around forever. So why am I saying these things to you? I said, you know what? We sat down, my team and I, and this is just how I think. This is every single police officer that I have working for me. Of course, I have to do this because this is how my brain thinks. But this is a survey I conducted, and I asked specific questions because I'm not in competition with street department. I'm not in competition with planning. I'm in competition with my industry. My industry is law enforcement. That's the Low Country is the breadbasket for law enforcement. Okay. So I say that because I'm competing against Charleston City, Isle Palms, Mount Pleasant. They pay for college for their police officers. They actually pay for college. They pay them based on their grades. I'm not asking for that, but I am asking for a couple of things. And what we did was we did a survey for the whole police department. If I go work at any of the other agencies around here, you get a pay raise for an associate's degree. You get a pay raise for a bachelor's degree, for a master's degree. You can have a window. The chief at least our sheriff has a window of up to 10% that I can actually give or incentivize somebody if they come in and they have all these certifications like Building's talking about here. They have all these certifications. I could pay up to a certain amount. I don't have any of that right now. No leeway. So in lieu of police officers, I'm asking you for the amount I need to bring everybody up to compete with these other agencies, to pay for these education incentives, to pay for this training, have differential pay. You work night shift. Nobody wants to work night shift. Let me give you a little fact here, and I know I'm probably going over my time, but some of you only use a couple minutes. True fact from South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. You come into law enforcement, brand new police officer in South Carolina, the average expectancy to stay in the profession is 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Now think about that for a second. We gave a number earlier to the mayor that it cost me about $25,000 to train somebody. Well, that's us hiring somebody and then waiting to go to the academy. I'm paying their salary while they're waiting. If I hire someone certified, I don't have to pay that. We never had certified people come here. It was always, we had someone got trouble somewhere and they came to work here. We pick them up, they were certified. I've got the best of the best of the best and the brightest wanting to come work here. And I told you the other night, it's not because of the money, but with North Charleston's announcement, with the Highway Patrol's announcement, it's a game changer in my industry. So $633,000 is what I'm asking for to do the entire police department, $633,370. That will pay adjust everybody up to the proper window. It's fair. It's equitable. And if I was to ask for 5 police officers in cars, it would cost me $729,914. I'm not asking for any police officers. That would cost me over $100,000+ more to ask for 5 police officers and their vehicles and equipment. I'm just asking you to make this right. I'm asking for the town council to please make this right. And I also urge us to look at the pay scale study that I did for a town, as a town, to where if you have an employee come and work for you, you have a grid that you can actually put somebody at. If they have this certification, if they have that, it's a perfect setup. And I use many police agencies around South Carolina. The one I found the most conducive to what we are is Greenville Police Department. Greenville Police Department, they have a 12% less cost of living than us. And what I'm asking for is basically what they're paying. We're paying 12% more than the cost of living here. And you're talking about inflation, Councilman Jackson. So now let's talk about the budget. Any questions?
Let me ask a question. Because
Like you
I
once
know
again.
absolutely nothing about this pay scale. When you hire somebody, you have to hire them at the minimum.
Yes, sir. If you are not certified,
without any experience.
43,000.
Maybe it's someone coming from the military.
That's included in this. I actually have military experience in here as well. I found some of my best employees have served and honorably been discharged from the military. Those people understand discipline, they understand chain of command, they understand uniformity, punctuality, all the things that are instilled in the Citadel, Councilman.
No, I mean,
here.
that just doesn't make logical sense That's certainly
Yeah.
something we need to give. If we trust the managers, department heads, we've got to give them the flexibility to manage their team the way they should and work within their budgets. And then hold you accountable after that.
Yes, sir. And what I've
Right now,
seen,
you're handcuffed.
I am literally, you see my hand behind my back.
I saw that.
Uncertified, 43 and some change. I have building inspectors making $41,000. These people are going out and putting their lives in the line, nothing against you, gentlemen. But I just put that out there because there's no incentivization. There's nothing to have anybody want to be in law enforcement anymore. They want to work 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, weekends off, and they can make more money in the private sector because they're selfish. These people are selfless. Your police and fire, your telecommunicators, EMS, these are the people that are doing this not for the money. We have to be able to let them stay competitive with our friends, our neighbors.
Nothing's
Yeah.
more inefficient than training someone with our money and then losing that to another municipality.
I agree. And I'll just piggyback off of something that Chief Wright said. For many years, I think what we've done historically is when we start getting the department heads together and the main theme is salary, 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 the immediate reaction is, okay, let's do a pay study. And we've consistently done a pay study. We'll enact a portion of it and we'll try to enact more of it in future years, but it ends up dissolving. But they always present it to us in that way, minimum, mid, and then maximum. That's all that they give to us.
We've never completed one. During my years, we've never completed a pay study.
So I do think the one size fits all definitely is not conducive, particularly with our varying departments that have different certifications, that work different shifts, that might have other things like they speak another language, that they have a
That's included
bachelor's
also,
degree or a
bilingual.
bachelor's degree. So I do think that this is definitely worth or the time for us to start looking at departments individually and looking at some sort of a pay scale by department rather than globally. So
Well, I guess I get confused. I mean, when I worked, actually was an employed, not somebody on the dole. That's how our pay scales were too. In the sales and marketing group I had, you had minimum, mid, max. Now, but within that, and that worked. It works because you hired, not you came in and you came in at the minimum. I looked at your experience, I looked what your skills were, I looked at what your training was, and you may have come in straight off the street somewhere between mid and max. And the other, and if we don't start looking at how do you grant department heads to deal with the real world that we compete in, just like any business. If I'm hiring salespeople, if I'm hiring clerks, if I'm hiring whatever, I am competing with these other entities, and this is what this person coming in with this level of training, this level of education is earning. And if I'm going to compete there, I'm either going to pay it or I'm not going to get it. I'm in fact going to lose to them.
I think something that probably, certainly Councilman Touchberry, but I think Councilman Jenkins and I both were surprised to hear. I don't see any problem with there being a range, minimum, mid, max, but it would have never occurred to me, Chief, that if you hire someone with 21 years experience for a job, that you would even consider, much less be mandated, if I'm understanding you correctly, to plug that person in at the minimum. That's not how I think the real world, the outside world, the private sector works. And I don't know if it's a result of us, overly relying on some sort of classification system for positions, but we're not paying positions, we're paying people. We're paying people based on their experience. So, I mean, that's just, I mean, it's a testament that if you're finding the people that meet your criteria with that kind of experience that are willing to work here for that little bit of money, based on the culture here, the environment here, that's a testament to what we're doing right.
Yes, sir.
But,
Right.
I want to retain and I want them to retire here. And almost nobody retired from here for a long, long time. I've had more people retire here from our agency in the last 2 years than the entire time I've worked here, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think the whole environment's changed. I mean, it's not walking a neighborhood anymore. It's a war zone.
People love this town. The police officers like the support they get. I said it Thursday night last week, the support they get from their government body, along with the townspeople are very, very good to us and to all the workers here. So that's the biggest chunk of what I need other than capital, but I'm happy. There was pretty much a shell game that occurred with my budget. We took some things with the recommendation of staff and kind of moved what we were not using a lot of and put it in other places. The biggest balloon item you're going to see on there is fuel. I cannot control, neither can us, neither can we, the price of petroleum, but we're projecting it not to get any better with everything that's going on around the world right now. So that's why you see such a large increase in fuel. We have directed our officers to turn their vehicles off when they're on calls for service and be efficient. So we're doing everything we can on our end to save money. Any questions about any items? I know there's a lot there, but I know you've had time to look them over.
What is, I happened to meet with somebody yesterday who gave me a figure, and his figure was that gasoline would have been about a 40% increase today versus a year ago.
That's correct. That's a good number. That's actually, we're using 37%. So that's 40 is about right because of what's going on in Ukraine. Would you like for me to throw a spitball out about my capital expense?
I think we can do them all.
Yeah, we've got a separate sheet for everybody's capital.
Oh, we're doing that separately. Okay. All right. Any questions?
I just more of an observation. Help us under, not today necessarily. I think your presentation was more than complete for today's purposes, but speaking for myself, I'd like to try to fund as much of that $633,307 as can. But I think we would benefit from dig into the details a little bit of what you prepared as far as, you've given us a lot of things that make sense. Pay for an associate's degree, you pay for being bilingual. I think for us to figure out a way to fund a significant amount of that, we're going to need all of that and really dig into it.
Yes, sir. I have all that. I'm more happy to meet you all separately. I would say this, and I should never show my cards, but I'm going to show my cards here.
Always show your cards.
Well, I like to keep them hidden sometimes. You got to.
At least you admit it.
Yes, sir. I'm not a liar. Ms. Rhonda explained, obviously we know this, we changed the fiscal year budget time from July to June for a reason, because our influx comes in after the first of the year, correct? It would be nice if you could fund that entire amount, if we could hold it in abeyance to start January 1st, and at least have these people, if you decide so, you have 6 months that you could generate revenue, and then you start having your other revenues come in. At least they know if you guys vote on or decide that there is something on the horizon, that it is 100%. That would help me retain what I foresee to be more people trying to leave. And they will leave for $5,000 more. I think Richard said I could be a North Charleston firefighter. I start out $5,000 more. I could be put at a fire station that's 2 miles away from the current town of Somerville fire station, make $5,000 more. So that's how public safety works, unfortunately.
Well, what you're describing is just good budget management, and we've done that in other pay raises that we couldn't, we could not afford the 12 months, but we funded part of the year and just asked our employees to hold on if they could. And I think in the past it's worked.
I think it
But
would.
most of the folks who work here want to keep working here, and it's because of the culture of public
100%.
safety in the town of Somerville.
Thank you.
But I think what Chief's talking about, I mean, you know, we've already heard from Don. I mean, this is for every department. This is just not public safety. If we're going to look at it, you know, I think we have to look at it. I think there's another aspect to salaries in general that we don't do very well at either. And I talked to other chief about this earlier. We don't hire any bad employees. We only hire good employees. I get it.
Until they turn bad. Then I rest them.
Well, I'm going to assume that they're all good, but
Not the ones we rest.
but within good, there's good, better, and best. And we don't do a very good job of when we have, here's 2% or 3% to give your salary increases. Guess what? The salary increases are going to range between 2.9% and 3.1%. That ain't right.
I agree, inflation. And I'll
No,
say,
not inflation.
well,
I'm speaking people.
oh, yeah.
I'm saying that somebody's supposed to be getting 1 and somebody's supposed to be getting 5. Because best gets paid better than good.
100%.
And that's something that I think all of our department heads have got to start. It hasn't been a culture that we've taught. And that's how you use your money to make sure that you retain. You don't pay everybody best. You make sure that if I'm going to lose somebody, I'm going to lose good, because we don't hire anybody that isn't good.
Well, one of the things, the contingencies that I added to this, which I think Chris Grant's going to talk about this afternoon at 4:00, is you will not be eligible for a step increase if you don't have, you have 3 evaluations, 3 years. You have to have at least 3 commendables, or you can have 2 commendables and 1 satisfactory. But if you have 2 satisfactory and 1 commendable, you're not going to be eligible. We're the only department in the town that has performance evaluations. And because we're accredited, that's how it is. It's been that way since I've started here. But that may change. But I actually went to monthly chronologicals so that people can learn from their goods and their bads each month, rather than wait a whole year to tell them what you did good in January versus the last thing I remember you did bad. So that's important, because you're right. What a lot of agencies have done, and departments around everywhere, is they take care of their buddies. They take care of the people who who are coming in, and we're saying, okay, everybody comes in there from here on out, we're gonna do this. You can't do that. You got to take care of the people who are here. Take care of the ones that have all those different features better than the others. And everybody should understand, if you want to get a college degree and get a $1,500 raise, go to college. We incentivize that now. You know what I mean? Learn another language. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for opening up the door a little bit for me, but kind of along the same line as Chief Wright was talking about with salaries and in competition for employees, retention of employees, retaining firefighters in our case is an increase that I proposed to Lisa and Rhonda, and that they were able to fund some of it, but some of it unfortunately just isn't going to get us to where we need to be. I did a kind of a phone call survey of fire departments around the area, and as Chief Wright said, one of my people right now that's assigned to Station 3 on Trolley Road, they can go get assigned 3 miles down the road to North Charleston Fire Department in Westcott and get a $5,000 a year raise and do the same exact job as what they do for us. And North Charleston doesn't have to train them. So it's a pretty good deal for them. And I'm fearful what's going to happen in the next year or so if we don't do something a little bit more to what we're going to do with the situation where we've already experienced a great deal of turnover in the last 2 years. So that full program that I put together was basically I took the rank structure within our department and started at the bottom, giving the bottom tier a 7% raise, and went up to my number 2 tier at 2% increase. I'm sorry, yeah, 2% at the top tier. So what that did is it keeps us from the top tier running away from the bottom tier with a higher percentage increase, but it also increases our bottom tier without creating the problem of compression between the ranks. And that's what we deal with now. A person can get a promotion in our department to the next tier up, and you know the pay increase might be $2,000 a year for a great deal more responsibility. So just trying to keep that separation between the rank structures and give them adequate raise to be competitive within the region is where we are with that. And I know you guys don't see that on the salary budget, on the salary sheet you have in front of you, but you do see the second line where Ms. Rhonda and Dan that did a great job, as Chief Wright said, with putting this thing together at 3% as opposed to at 167,000. What I initially had proposed was $300,042 to do the entire thing. So, any questions about that?
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate you pointing out to us, because when you first started talking, I was very confused. Because it appeared that your request was the same as the 22 budget, but that's not really accurate.
That's correct. That's correct. As far as positions that we requested this year was a position, an additional position in our training division. In the past 2 years, we have trained over 30 new firefighters, just to keep our current staffing level where it is. What we have done to accomplish that is pull one of our personnel members off the line. We pulled them off the truck, put them on day work so they could work 5 days a week to help limit the overtime costs that is incurred with running the recruit school. If you guys haven't been out to our recruit school, I'd encourage you to stop at our training site at any time during the process. It's a really rigorous school. I would argue we got the best school in the state as far as teaching new firefighters what the skills they need to be successful in our organization. And we are seeing the benefits of that recruit school that we started doing back in 2017 at this point, because we've got people that went through our program that are now coming back to help teach the schools within the organization. So it's been a very successful program in my opinion. And as opposed to sending people off to the academy, what we spend for the current 17 recruits we have right now in school, we'll spend between South Carolina Fire Academy course fees and our overtime, we'll spend $22,200 to train these 17 firefighters. If we sent the same 17 firefighters to Columbia with per diems included, because we have to pay for their meals when they're gone, and travel mileage for them to go back and forth to Columbia, and the class fees, we'd be spending $55,000. So with us doing these 17 in-house, we're actually saving roughly $30,000 to do a train. Kind of jumped around a little bit there.
Chief, I want to go back to the salary and wages for a second, just to make sure I understand.
Okay.
What you had initially talked to, I guess, the administration about was about, I think you said a 7% increase. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Roughly.
And so what's shown as a 3% increase or 167,063, that actually would go toward, that's not an addition. That would actually go towards
the 7% that we requested.
So the difference, I think you gave a number, the difference is somewhere around 200,000, is that?
Between 2 and 250, somewhere in that range. It was 300,000 total, and you're at 167 now, so about 150,000 more. We're about half.
Okay. It was 300 even. Is what
yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. That's what it's taken. And that wasn't pay scale implementation as Chief Wright was proposing.
That was my next question.
Yeah, all that's doing is getting us back to being competitive with the region.
So whether you have 3% when this budget is passed, or whether you have 7% when this budget is passed, how do you anticipate that you will be putting in effect those salary adjustments? Is it across the board?
Yes, sir. It would be across the board. self-excluded and just take basically the same formula that I used before, and we'll come up with a number. To come up with the numbers that I used, I took every individual within the rank structure, within a firefighter rank, for example. We have 43 firefighters at that rank positions. I took every salary within that and took an average, and then took 7% of that to come up with the number for the amount of the raise they would receive.
But whether it's 3%, 4, 5, 6, 7, each employee at a fire department, I think you said yourself excluded.
Yes.
You say that?
Yeah.
Pretty savvy, Chief.
Yeah.
They would get, each employee would get that exact percentage increase. I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm asking the same question again. You're not gonna, I mean, if you're captain, let's say it's only 3%, I hope it's more.
Yeah.
The captain gets 3%, a firefighter gets 3%.
No, I don't think we'll do it that way because.
Okay, that was my question.
Because that'll cause the same problem that I spoke about earlier, where the top will start running away from the bottom, and the bottom won't get as much of an increase as the top. So it eats up all the money we have.
Between now and first reading, can you provide us with how,
The formulas.
Formulas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
So there's a separation, Richard, between the amount, the percentage that you would pay in the higher grade groups.
Yes, sir.
But are we also looking at what I was mentioned earlier? Are there differences between a grade and where they are? Not necessarily one of them earns a little bit more than the other one, but higher performers.
Really just between what we talked about before and even what you were just mentioning earlier about good, better, and best. In our world, it's tough to lose good. We want to retain good.
I understand.
That's kind of the issue we run into there. If we don't, we want to find out ways to reward best, and we do that through other incentives of recognition and things of that nature that does help encourage better and best as best as we can do for that. But if you're given this example, a 3% increase to spread out across the department, in a department where we're already hurting to get people up to the next level, up to competitive with the region, and we only gave them 1%, we're not going to retain that person. If you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
They're going to go take that $5,000 a year raise that North Charleston's going to give them.
So when we look at competitive, I guess the which we need to, but the slippery slope is we're not going to compete with North Charleston. We don't have the money North Charleston does, and we're not going to have the money that North Charleston does anytime soon. I hope we get enough commercial coming in that we can start being better at it. But you're talking about closing the gap to the point that people are not.
It's not as enticing to bail out. As Chief Wright said, we do a pretty good job. We attract people from North Charleston as well. I've had people that have left us in the last 3 years, going to work for North Charleston, and then return. They've come back. So we do have a pretty good work culture, work environment as comparatively. Unfortunately, when you start getting $5,000-6,000 a year at $35,000, $36,000 a year, $5,000 is life changing. And somebody can tolerate a little more stressful or unpleasant work environment for a life-changing salary.
And it seems to me that there's a big difference between fire and police from the standpoint of somebody taking another job and how they may look at it. And I'll just use city of Charleston, okay? If you're a policeman and you go to work for the city of Charleston, you're commuting downtown Charleston 5 days a week. If you're a fireman, you're commuting downtown 2 days a week. And so I would think what that means is
it's more difficult to retain and fire because they've got less travel to go to somewhere else on the 24 and 48 off system. Not that it's a big difference. I don't think so. When it comes to $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, okay.
That's not.
You're gonna ride 4 days or 5 days or 2 days.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Sir. The other increases within our operating budget were pretty, fuel was a big increase for us next year, naturally, just as the others explained. We have some additional training expenses and maintenance agreements. You asked earlier, Councilman McIntosh, about whether we really looked at it. Do we dive deep into our budgets? And to answer that question, we do pretty well. We go pretty deep into it. And this started with us back about 3 years ago. We put together a full team to put together a budget. It's worked really well. Where each division basically takes a portion, the line item that we're responsible for, training, for example, and they come up, we look at historical trends and what we need to do extra in the future. So 10,000, what we did discover in that is our maintenance agreements, as Chief Rates was talking about earlier, that have to do with all of our software programs. Some of those that we had budgeted for last year, we found were actually coming out of the communications budget. So we were able to reduce that line item by $10,000. So, I mean, it's just getting picked up in another department's budget naturally. So it doesn't just go away. But
It's always easier to find problems in other persons.
But are there any other questions about operations or personnel expenses? We do have some capital as well, but as Lisa said, we're going to talk about those later.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Anything else for fire? Manny was next.
Unlike the last two, mine's gonna be pretty simple. I did not ask for anything. So,
Congratulations.
Hey.
So in other words, Chief Wright was correct.
He is correct, yes. No, I shifted a few things around a little bit just based on, actual numbers over the last few years but I did not increase anything. So, yeah.
Guess we liked it last year. We can't argue about it this year.
Except this year, we're seeing exactly what we're paying for the 595,575. It's one way to make it a simple budget for Chief, I'm sure.
Well, you hear what's going on, and I realize as far as our department goes, we don't have a whole lot of expenses in terms of operating. Generally when we do their one-time things for a year, when we need to do a comp plan or we need something like that done, and we don't have that coming up next year. So.
And retention has not been as
it
bad
hasn't
as what
been
everybody else is.
as much of a deal with everybody else. Last year I was able to give a couple folks some more money for things they'd done to get to that spot. We are slightly underpaid compared to the areas around us, particularly for our, well, it's called our zoning administrator position, but most people call it a senior planner / zoning administrator. That one is a little below what most folks make at that position with the amount of responsibility that person has. But compared to the other requests, I didn't feel like it was something that would receive priority, so I didn't bother asking for it. Not to be blunt, but that's kind of.
Bluntness is appreciated.
Chief Wright owes you time credit.
Yeah. But I mean, if there's any questions about my existing expenses, I'm happy to answer them.
Just a question that's in your planner, how much money would bring that into line?
So right now, I think that position is making. Right now, that position is making, it's at about 64. And I would, looking at around the state, actually, you can look at the municipal association and look at the most senior planners, 60 is usually like the low end. And it goes up to like 85 or so on the high end for the equivalent. Like I said, ours is labeled as zoning administrator. If you look at zoning administrator, it's a little different because most zoning administrators don't do. Most people who have a zoning administrator also have like 12 employees in their planning department, not 6. So they don't handle all the boards. I mean, our zoning administrator handles the BZA and the DRB, also handles code enforcement issues, all that kind of stuff within planning and all the commercial plan review. So it's a pretty significant responsibility. So I mean, I would say just to bring it up to the mid level would need to at least be,
No further questions for Jesse. I think we've got Parks and Rec coming.
And yield some time to Amy too. Thank
you. Questions? Yes, more questions.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you guys. I know that Lisa, Ron, and Dan have spent a lot of time on this budget. And Dan definitely would tell you that I probably ask him and harass him more than probably any other department head. So Mr. McIntosh, to answer some of your questions that you asked, I look at our numbers very closely year round, and I'm constantly reevaluating programs or different things that we're doing. That's why some of these items like Cuthbert is coming up, because when I look at those programs, they just fiscally do not make any sense to me the way that we're currently operating. So we really are looking at and evaluating everything that we do. A lot of, my department is very diverse. Some of the things that we do is not intended to produce revenue. Some is neutral, and then other things are to generate revenue. So a lot of my budget numbers are going to correlate directly to the revenue. So if we're seeing an increase in programs or registration, then of course that expense, but that revenue also goes up kind of simultaneously. If I can, I'll start with our salary and wages. So my request, as you'll see here, is significantly more than was recommended. The reason for that, or I can just explain that number, what we were hoping to accomplish. So I met with Stormwater and Streets, and what we would like to do is bring that entry-level position up to $15 an hour. Each one of ours is slightly different currently. Mine is currently, if you're just walking in as a grounds maintenance tech, you're making $13.77 an hour. And that's in some cases less than what we pay some of our part-time staff. So I do feel it's really important to try to get that entry-level wage up to where it's a livable wage with inflation. I hear the stories. These guys work really hard and they do a great job for the town, and they are struggling to make ends meet, especially with the cost. So I do feel it is important to get those entry-level positions up to that $15. But as we can't just raise that bottom without adjusting some of the other positions as well. So that took into account what that was. And also, I didn't say it at the beginning. It said I have 40 employees. I actually have 35 full-time employees. And then my part-time fluctuates, but currently right now I have 18 part-time employees. But what that would do, it essentially adds about $1.25 to each of those positions. And that is what the bulk of that additional request is. I did ask for 2 additional positions. And I'd like to just go ahead and cover those briefly. So last year I came to you guys and I requested an assistant projects manager. I do have a projects manager, but he was one person and he's doing all the projects in all 16 of our parks and facilities. And that's an incredible amount of buildings and boardwalks for one person to maintain. And I'm so grateful because with that second person, we were able to do a lot and we're making a dent in a lot of those projects that we have. We were able to do the playground. I don't know if you saw the East Richardson Trailhead. We just completely built a parking lot there and they are doing great work. But this laborer would be part of that projects team. I'm trying to get a full crew that could then go out and do projects without having to pull from other areas to provide hands when we're working on those. So the laborer was one of the positions that I requested. And then the second position is a programmer. We currently do not have a programmer. I would tell you that we should have several programmers. A programmer is not an expense to the town. So even though you see an amount there for the budget, a programmer offers programs. It's a pay to play. So these are programs that people want. They want their kids in an after school program. They want them to go to summer camps. Just to give you some quick information, we offered camps last year. We had 626 camp participants. 99% of all of those camps were independent contractors where we pay them 70% of the revenue. We keep 30%. But we had in addition to those 626 camp participants, we had 261 kids on the wait list. And we couldn't put in a camp because we didn't have any other instructors. If we had a staff member who could run these camps for us, that's revenue that we can keep 100%. That if we had put those 261 kids in a $75 camp, that's $20,000. The closest thing that we currently have to a programmer right now is our tennis instructor. And for 2021, she generated $47,000 in revenue. That's more than her salary now currently. And she can't do it on a large scale as a programmer could because a lot of her programs are one-on-one tennis lessons, whereas a programmer can take 25 kids in a program. So their ability to generate revenue is much greater. We've actually requested a programmer several years in a row. I think my predecessor may have asked for one as well. I don't know if it was ever explained to council, but this position is to generate revenue. So I would ask you to consider funding it, even if it was a temporary 1-year position where you give us the opportunity to show us that it can cover its expenses, because I truly believe that it can. And the people that are hurt by not having it is the community, because they want these programs. They're willing to pay for them. We can show that. We have kids, on the wait list, and we don't have the ability. And also by having it being our staff, it's reliable. We know who they are, and we can count on them. They're dependable. And we're not out trying to find, people to run some of these programs. And again, this wouldn't take away from any other programs that we currently offer. This is in addition to the programs. So we have the space, we have the multi-purpose rooms, and we're not filling those up currently. So we're not going to take anything that we're currently offering. We're going to continue. It would just add additional programs on. Any questions about the salary request or those positions?
Amy, can you break it down a little bit further? If I'm reading this correctly, what you requested was $117,000 that's not in the recommended budget for salaries and wages. If you can roughly tell us how much of that $117,000 would have gone to bringing the frontline employees to $15 an hour.
Hold on 1 second. If I take out, so I had 74,000 in for the new position. So if you just back out 70, so it's 74,000 was for the new positions. All the rest was to raise that minimum entry level in. It also included two adjustments for staff that are great staff that I felt needed to have a slight adjustment, and both of those were I mean, 2,000 tops for both of those. All of the rest of that money was to raise those salaries.
So if I'm backing it out correctly, being a liberal arts major, that could be dangerous, but it's about 41,000 to bring those frontline employees up to a minimum of 15 an hour. The 3% increase that is included is about that 40,000. I'm kind of asking you the same question that I asked Chief Waring. Do you foresee giving the 3% across the board? And I mean, I'm assuming that 40,000 will at least help get the folks at 1377 to 15. Do you have any idea how close that will get them?
Yes. So, I mean, if I assume that at that 3%, they would not then get the 2% COLA on top of that. So I think that 3% does not go very far. We would have to, I think in fairness, spread that. It can't just go to those people in those entry level. Plus it's going to compress those pay grades. So I think we would have to distribute that across. I don't know the percentages because I had not looked at it from that perspective. But if I did it just across the board and ran it across the 34 full-time employees, excluding myself, it comes out to 18 cents an hour. So that's not even, you're at 1370.
$14.18 an hour or something like that.
Yeah, it's gonna put them at 13.95 an hour.
Trust in that.
Amy, I neglected to ask anybody else this, so this applies to anybody else who's done anything that has anything to do with salary prior to Amy. We're talking salary. We're not talking the 35% add-on for benefits, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
So the
633 includes everything.
okay, that was retirement, everything included in that. Okay, so for the ones, that's roughly 35%. I'm asking Rhonda, I guess. Okay, I'm in without, I can't read the number, I could do the math, so, and that's even with the glasses, so.
Well, and I do think, I'm excited to hear some of the things discussed earlier, because being able to move people through bands has been an issue, from my perspective too. And I know that I'm still very new and learning, but there's not a clear way to be able to move people from the minimum to the median. And so, some of these discussions hopefully will help this in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to take us back to something Aaron and I have tried to do for years, and that's have everybody do evaluations. So we have documentation on performance and all. I know when I worked at Bosch, they'd say the average raise was 3%. Some got 1, some got 6. If you got 1, you need to start looking for a job the second time. So, I mean, it was just kind of like, hey, here's a nudge, guy. We don't want you.
Well, you and I have a disagreement about performance evaluations, but I agree completely that our division heads, department heads, if they get a 3% increase for salaries, that they should have the ability to give some 1 or 0 and some 5, 6, or 7. And that's just how the real world works.
Yeah, and you do have the spread like Richard talks about. The top keeps growing at a faster amount, same rate, that they run away with it. And they all, about every 4 years, they recount that.
Well, one of the things I believe in, I think if you're gonna have a merit system where you give people raises, but don't give them raises based on their performance. I think that everybody should get an evaluation. They can understand if they didn't get any increase or 1% or 2%, they should understand, because the advantage of evaluating all employees, your very best, and your better and your good, or less than good, is you can teach that person how to become a better employee by your evaluation. When you look at that evaluation, you can sit them down and explain to them, you didn't get the 1% this time, but here's why you have to improve on these things. Future could be brighter for you. So it could be a learning process. You don't want to not give them an increase and don't explain anything to them. They might get mad and leave. And if you explain it to them, they might in a year or so improve themselves. If they understand how they can improve it, they might become better. That's how I feel. I feel evaluation is very important. It's a teaching thing. It helps us to become a better town as far as people who work in whatever department they work in.
Parks and Recreation too has started or incorporated this past year an evaluation process for all of our supervisors or managers. We don't do it for the entry level positions, but we did incorporate one this past year. And go ahead.
We actually have different, I think Chris has talked, we have an evaluation that's for supervisors, is completely different from that for line employees too.
And as far as the program people, I wasn't convinced we wanted to do the tennis pro back in those days. And we decided to do it by contract so that the town wouldn't lose any money. And it's worked out very well. So I would suspect that this will work out as well, if not better.
Well, I know that, but there's some departments, particularly public safety, but particularly fire. When I walked into the swamp and the alligators showed up, I lost complete track of my mission was to drain the swamp. I was worried about the alligators, and I think that's part of what they're facing in public safety is the alligators of everybody around us who wants the employees.
One of the things that we struggle in Parks and Recreation right now is our part-time employees. We can't get part-time employees. Our overtime numbers this year are high because we just are not getting applications. We don't have a single part-time employee right now working in the Gahagan, the evening hours, or closing our facilities. They are all open. We don't have a single part-time staff member in those positions currently, and it is hurting us. And we have tried almost every recruitment that we can think of or method, but we cannot find part-time employees currently.
What's the current salary for part-time?
Part-time is $13 an hour. But because we cannot find those part-time employees, we are using overtime hours.
And what positions would you utilize for part-time if you can find the part-time employees?
So we use the two positions that are currently open that have been open for honestly almost a year, or is the evening hours. They go around, they close the facilities up. If there's night rentals or evening rentals, they'll stay throughout those facilities, clean those buildings at the end of the evening. And then they also work at Gahagan. So they're setting up, turning on the lights at Gahagan, going around doing field prep, cleaning the restrooms, those activities.
So those part-time employees, how many hours do they have? I should say
30 or less. 30 or less.
Now, for what we're paying overtime,
Probably hire a full-time employee. Would that help?
It's one of the things we could look at doing.
I understand the logic behind the programmer, and I don't know, where the other 6 of us are on it. Maybe that's something we work towards for next year's budget, because it does seem logical. It does seem like it could pay for itself. Maybe folks are ready to go forward this year with it. But the thing that jumped out at me out of that request is it is trying to get folks to $15 an hour. That I just say, and I think you know this, Amy, and I think most of the people know it here, but in case they don't, our frontline Parks and Rec employees, and I would say it to Mr. Campbell as well, our frontline streets department employees and our frontline Parks and Rec employees are incredible ambassadors for our town.
More as well.
The interaction that they have with our citizens, our constituents, is just overwhelmingly positive. And that's not the that's not the reputation statewide, nationwide of folks in positions like that. It's obvious that our employees, that frontline employees making $13 an hour, genuinely love what they do and where they work. And I'd like to try to get us to $15 an hour minimum as quickly as possible.
I mean, it's $1.25 an hour.
And we do talk about it every year, and we make little progress every year.
If there's no other questions, as far as operational expenses go, just as everyone else has said, we just see prices increasing. It's incredible. And it's week to week. We could get a quote and next week it's twice that. We got a quote for 2 walk behind mowers. I can buy one now for what I could have bought a year and a half ago. I could have bought 2. And those are just the prices that we're seeing. It's so that is a lot of what the increases are. I'm just going to run through, there were a couple things when we go through and we look at the projects in the park, where there are things that we know we anticipate. And so we included those projects in here. Those projects were taken out because they were a one-time expense. And a lot of them, were like, for example, the Saul Alexander Playground. There's 2 picnic tables there. It's been so well received and we need more. So I had put some money in here to buy new tables. And that money was taken out, and we don't have to buy those tables. I just know that people would like to have those there. But some of the things that we did put in here was a new air conditioning unit for Doty. We've put a Band-Aid on it. It's an old system. It's going to die. We can wait until it does and then come back and request additional funds. There's a boardwalk at the Oak Brook Trail that's rotted. And so we had put funds in there to go ahead and repair that trail. Well, again, we've just been going in and replacing one board here, one board there, but the guts under it are completely rotten. And so I kept saying, well, let's wait till we budget the money. I've put the money in, and now the money, it's not there. And I understand that it's not, but if we're not able to repair these boardwalks, then, maybe we look at, the question is, well, do we close half of that trail until we do have the funds to repair it? And those are the questions I think that we, this next year we'll have to ask ourselves.
Well, I broke
Right.
2 of them.
Good thing I didn't walk on.
No, it's bad. It is definitely a liability right now.
Yeah. And when you look at something like the fertilizer and chemicals, it looks like right now we're getting the same dollar amount, but that same dollar amount doesn't buy this year what it bought a year and a half ago. So it's really a reduction for us, even though it's the same dollar amount, and it's going to limit what we can do and how often we can do it.
Bought 4 new tires 3 years later, the same 4 tires that I bought 3 years ago cost me $1,000 instead of $650.
It's crazy.
So
Well, and
I know you were at the end, but the cost of maintenance, I see it captured here, but it's not enough to maintain our facilities, obviously.
not at the current level. Like we will have to scale back certain activities if we're to stay within some of these numbers. Yes. And honestly, the cost of wood, a lot of the things that we started doing, we're switching over to the composite lumber, which will last much longer because there's such an insignificant, you know, price difference.
Scary.
Okay.
No other questions? Parks, you can go on the streets.
Questions for Amy? Hey, Mark.
That's quite. So the salary and wage just went up. Where, like Amy said, me and Ryan and Amy got together and talked about it and wanted to increase everything $15 an hour starting pay. As we were talking. 15. Yes, sir. And as we were talking, we realized that we were all paying different starting salaries for our starter positions for the most part. As of right now, I'm the lowest starting paying position at $13 an hour. And that is, you know, the SEO assistant, somebody coming off the street starting out at the bottom. I have guys that have been there 5-6 years making 15. And I understand that maybe the job title may not be able to change, may not increase in that aspect, but I can't leave those guys at 15 and starting somebody at 15. It can't happen. It's not fair. It's not right. They know the streets, they know the zones, and they get out there, they're in the public 24/7, getting spoken to certain ways and treated certain ways and still doing their job, coming in when it's raining. It's not right. I can't keep them at that. Even starting people, you know, you start people at $13 an hour to go out there and use a rake all day. Well, it's just using a rake. Okay. Crawl in and out of a truck all day in 95-degree weather and not complain about it at $13 an hour. Okay. When it's raining outside, when it's 40 degrees outside and raining. Okay. It's got to be changed sooner or later, and it'll be sooner than later. I've had openings for the past year. I've had, I think, 3 to 4 openings for the past year. I have very few applications. I hate to say the quality of worker that is applying for it is not most desirable, but at some point in time, I got to have somebody at least come in and do, you know, to be there to do the job, you know, try to do the job for a certain amount of time. So the salaries and wages increase, that's basically what that is. That's moving, let me see here. I think I got it at 6 people. That's moving 8 people up to $15 an hour. That's how many people I have starting off making 13 at this point, not 8 people, 37.
So the 143, 917, that's just to get those 8 people up.
That's to get those, nope, that's to 8 people up and to separate, you know, we put in a number to separate everybody that was making, you know, 15, that was already making 15, that's been there for several years, to try to separate those as well.
Move them up a little bit.
To move them up a little bit, to get everything spread out so you're not on top of one another. So that's what that money's for, or request is for.
So your budget request is knocked down from 166,475. So with the recommended budget from the administration, would you be able to accomplish what you want to?
To accomplish, to get that done, I think I can do that with that money. Obviously, no, I won't be able to bump everybody up in my department, and that's understandable because you have some people that are making more than others, but I'm hoping that that will allow me to spread them out so they're not lapping on top of one another so closely that it becomes an issue. Let's see what we have. So I've asked for an increase in overtime, 10,000 or the 50. I'm basically, I have very little left in overtime, which the year is almost complete. We started a program, a CDL program. It requires the instructor, which works for me. He's doing CDL testing. Well, not, he's giving a CDL test for all employees of the town of Somerville to get a Class A CDL license, whether, I think some of the fire department and stormwater and I think even Parks and Rec may be using it some to get CDL license in-house. But with the overtime, it's, I have to pay him to do it. So it's usually 2 hours after work. Sometimes an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours after work situation, and how many people he has to stay over. I do not pay the employee that's taking the test to stay over and get it. But I do pay the instructor to stay over and get it. So I wanted to have that extra in there because I was running short this year.
Is it
And
possible?
that's not counting the, when we go out for, we get called out for stop signs being down at, 11 o'clock at night and different things. So a guy goes out at 1 o'clock in the morning. It goes out for an hour. I won't send them from their house for less than an hour. Swear. Okay. You don't go out for 30 minutes, leaving your house, go to the job site, get in the truck, and then go out and then come back in and get paid for 30 minutes. It's got to be at least an hour. So that's what that increase is for. If you move down to the sidewalks and drains, so that's steadily increasing mostly because of sidewalks. Repairs on sidewalks, pick a neighborhood that's been here for 10 years, that's got a tree growing beside, close to the sidewalk, and you got a busted sidewalk. It's steadily increasing with the amount of neighborhoods that we have. We have had some neighborhoods that have out of the blue sinkholes underneath the sidewalks that we didn't plan on repairing, new neighborhoods, different things like that. It's just steadily adding up. It's got to be more if you want us to maintain what we have to maintain, and that includes the potholes, patching, and different things like that as well. Street signs, same way. Once you replace street signs in a neighborhood, they're good. They should be good for at least 5 years. Okay, 5 to 8 years is what we're shooting for. It doesn't always work out that way, obviously. We have requests for different signs all over the place. Some of the signs, a lot of the signs we make in-house. Some we have to purchase from outside because we don't have the equipment to make certain machines. So that's the increase for that as well. Obviously, oil and gas, I think everybody's increased on that. So, any questions?
Just on the CDL license,
Yes.
is it possible to do that during work hours?
The only place we have for testing is our parking lot, and we have been trying to empty the parking lot out, and so we can do it on hours, on the hours. But I've got 30 people. Ryan, I don't know how many people. We're all in this parking lot trying to figure out where to park at. And we're doing the best we can to do it on hours.
The testing's performed. On the actual test is done during the workday, but the training part is
Correct. That's right.
afterward.
I guess my logic is it's a CDL license we require. And to make them train and not get paid for it.
Yeah,
I question that.
when you post a job and you start a job at $14 an hour and hope that they got a CDL license, and you would like to have a CDL license, when they can go work anywhere else making $18, $19, $20 an hour with a CDL license, in-house training at any point in time that you can get it, so they can get their CDL license is the way to go, and hope they don't get it and leave. And I've been fortunate so far not to have anybody leave that's got it. So
I think it's a great thing to do. I just feel like they should be paid for it.
Well, if you don't, they get the CDF, you give them the CDF.
Well, when we
They
get
don't
them,
get the
when
money, they're gonna leave.
they get their CDL license, we try to, I try to give them an increase in pay. It's not nearly what they would get on the outside, obviously, but something is better than nothing. if it's in the budget to get that. I asked for an increase last year so I could give 5 people CDLs increases, and I think it was $1 amount, $1 per CDL. So in this past year, I've gotten 4 guys that have gotten their CDL license and gotten that increase.
So they are getting paid for it.
They are getting an extra
Okay.
on the back end, yes. If they don't pass it, they don't pass and they get nothing, but
Okay.
I can't see paying somebody that's overtime, that's working to get that extra increase. If he gets it, then he gets the increase.
That makes sense. That, I'm okay with that.
It's free training.
Right, yeah.
Basically.
It costs you several $1,000s outside of work.
Yeah, and then they can go to Suburban and make 80,000,
Yeah, pretty much,
90,000 a year driving a garbage truck.
I'm sure this is captured somewhere, but from a service standpoint, do we keep a record of how we respond to service calls on
After
in the
hours.
Streets Department?
After hours?
Right.
No, not that I'm aware of, unless dispatch is keeping a record of it at some point.
I was just wondering if there was any metrics from a service standpoint in these areas.
Sure, how to answer
When it comes to police dispatch, we do have a log of it. Now, so a lot of people call in, it doesn't come through the police department, but usually when you have a stop sign, something like that down at night, that's something we keep track of.
We do have a town app or system that tracks work orders. Or public work app and actually there's that data. And
I know that the recommended budget is $80,000 plus minus less.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if there's a service relationship with that. budget.
Most of the time, when we get called out after hours, it's normally because the stop sign's down and has to be replaced. Or like the chief said, they have a tree too big for them to move. We have to bring the loaders in. That usually just comes straight from dispatch. I mean, I send a crew out. I also have 5 guys that stay on a skeleton crew pretty much all the time that pretty much stay on the call. It's usually when we know there's a storm coming. But it's people that live within, 10 minutes of the actual job, so they can get there and get out as quick as they possibly can. And during those situations, maybe we have to stay over 2 or 3 hours until we see what the storm's going to do. It just, no, sir, it's no way to keep a record with it that I know of, but maybe. Yes, sir. That's it. We're good.
Anything else, Mark? Need this.
As y'all know, we are heading for interaction with the public. We are behind the scenes pretty much. Or we access or we have it's the any department that has a whole bit. Maybe you go down and what's the final cost of the town's fixed assets, how much it was? The town's rolling assets is the second biggest, fixed asset is the second biggest cost y'all have, other than buildings and grounds. And we maintain it. Like I says, we try to keep everything rolling, and what I'm asking for on my budget, I'm asking for the $69,945 for salary increase. Now, what that includes, that's to raise 9 positions up. It doesn't include mine like right here. That takes the positions up, doesn't mean that everybody's getting that. What I'm actually asking for, goes in for this next coming year is 42,249 to raise the positions up. I've had an open position for almost a year now. I've had people from North Charleston apply, look at it, and leave. Had retired people come in, there's just not enough money for them. It's not there. Competing against Caterpillar and everybody else in private industry, and they're paying $35 an hour plus they're getting sign-on bonuses. We don't have that. So that being said, the town has sent out some large equipment to be fixed, and it's been $10,000-$12,000 to get them fixed at a garage. The local Dodge dealer there in town, he charges $165 an hour. You know, the bigger trucks charge more. We don't charge that much. We don't get paid that much. I'll give you an example. We just did a job on Richard's ladder, the newest ladder, well, the second newest ladder he's got, 2.5 years old. We took the suspension out of it and put it in, and it cost us $2,100 to do that. Finished job versus sending it out and paying, you know, $8,000-$10,000. We're doing 2 cars for Doug right here. I got 2 quotes from Hoover. They want $5,742 just to change the camshaft and rest of that. We decided to do it in-house. We got $2,200 in, plus $692 labor per car. So he's saving $8,000. So that's money's not coming out of his budget. So, and then, like I said, we got a warranty program we run. Been running since '98. In the last fiscal year, we saved $16,430 on it. Again, most of it applies at PD right there. It shows that broke that down. Planning department saved $150. Police saved $13,303. Fire got $227. Street got $212. Parks got $1,210. Stormwater saved $1,325. We do. I started a parts program again. We buy parts that are under warranty, and part goes bad 1 year, 6 years from now, if we still in the vehicle, we get it for free. We buy brakes for vehicles. We don't pay for them ever again. I've got a deal work with the parts houses. We turn them in, they give us a new one back. We put them on the car. All you got is labor, no cost. It's the hidden cost that y'all don't see that we're making, and we're saving for each other's department. So that's why I'm asking for the salary increases. I got a heavy tech position I cannot fill. Now, if you take that actual 42,249 that I'm asking for, and you take out the 10,404 that they budgeted for 2% out of that, you're down to 31,845. I mean, that's all I'm asking for the upcoming year, just to bring everybody's salary back where it needs to be. Or like I said, like he said, you know, you want to retain them and you want them to retire. And I've been here 40 years. You know, I love this place. Like I said, not everybody has that same sentiment about it. So we're trying to make that. We keep the town employees that know the equipment, know what it is, know how to fix it. Past that, that's basically all I'm asking for. Any questions?
I had a question about, so when you do service in the house, obviously your response time is much faster than the market. How long are some of these major repairs taking when you outsource it?
Depending on availability of parts. And that could be anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks.
When I have any of our Dodge vehicles, which is all of them, when they're covered under warranty, they usually sit between 30 and 90 days at Hoover.
And we are a Ford, I guess you call it, but we got a Ford dealer license. We got a Chrysler dealer license, and we've got a Cummins dealer license. So his fire trucks come in and need a program update. We have trained people in the equipment to update his car, his truck in 30 minutes. It's out the door. Don't have to take it across town. We do the same thing for Doug. We actually do Hoover's warranty work when it comes to programming. They'll come in with a mass recall program on the car for update. We send them Hoover's in 3 to 4 days minimum to get to them. We do them in 30 minutes. We schedule them in, they come in, I contact Doug or Johnny O'Mara, and look here, I need these 5 cars on this shift, come in, you know, at this time span. They come in, we program them, we send them out, they're there for 30 minutes. We program and do all our own programming for Ford. Ford does the same thing. We give them a list of the VIN numbers. And some mechanic at these dealerships is making money, whoever the service writer decides to give it to. You know, we don't care. Cars, we keep the cars on the road. They're not tied up at a dealership somewhere. I'm working on GM now. That's a horse of a different color. But everything we order, like says, from a Freightliner to a custom fire truck, has got Cummins engines in it. And we're well versed on that. We've got the equipment to program it. We keep it up. We do all the updates every time it comes in for service. But like I says, I mean, I can produce a number of things with money that nobody ever sees other than the departments, because they're not spending it, that we save. I mean, you can't afford to send it out. And I said, I don't know how much assets the town has. And again, I'm short staffed, so I can't meet the deadlines, especially on him. Roger's brought trucks into a meeting. I can't get to, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, and they'll take it up. They take it to Worldwide. And I've got tickets, they spent $12,000 getting repaired.
Do we have a number, Dan, of monies that were spent outside that we could have done inside in a year?
We could have, but I don't have, we discussed that in the pre-budget meeting. I only have what I'm aware of. So if somebody sends a truck out and I'm not aware of it goes to someplace and gets fixed, I wouldn't have that number for them. That we could have got fixed. Dan would, because he does the large POs. Yeah. So yeah, that can be produced.
Well,
I can tell you
it just seems to me that if you're justifying a person, an easy way to justify somebody being in-house is how much should we pay an outside group to pay it, to fix it? And, if we spend $100,000 a year to do that, between all the different departments, and by adding a person, we could not do that. No, that doesn't make common sense to me that we wouldn't be adding a person. Not adding to the budget, maybe saving on the budget and improving the service.
But it's like putting the money up front, but you don't see it till the end of the year and you realize you haven't spent that much money. You actually we save money, we don't make money. Like I said, we don't, you never see it though. You only see it if you do the bottom line and you compare it to an outside source every time. Remember back in 91 when our budget, I don't know if you were here, but I had took when y'all gave me the position back in 91, I dropped y'all's maintenance budget $177,500, $177,500. And it took 21 years to get back to that amount. So I said, it requires, I need 4 people on each side. I got 4 on the light duty side. I got 3 on the heavy duty side. And I can't take no more people. I'm maxed. That's it. I'm done. But with the price, I've interviewed probably 5 people for the open position, and that position pays $22.50 an hour, and that's a lot to some people. But I don't have labor positions. All I have is skill positions. Half the equipment, all the equipment, anything past 2010's got computers in it. My guys have to be asked for almost an IT person along with the mechanical upgrade and getting nasty and getting dirty and doing the large stuff. You've got a great facility down there. You've got all the equipment we can do to make it work. We've even brought his alignments in. We were sending his alignments out. I've got a machine that does the alignments. Now I've got enough people on the light duty side to handle it. And that saves him $75 every time we do a suspension change. And on his charger, that's every day.
We spend about $143,000 a year on vehicle repairs, most of which is done in-house. So
yeah. I mean, and even the suspension pumps, I mean, I can give you a list of each department, how much they've saved. That's easy. But the Dodgers, they got the Chargers, they got a bad suspension problem up front. And I got them under warranty. Like I said, he saved last fiscal year from June 30th to July 1. July 1 to June 30th, he saved $13,000. That's part
I understand what we're saying, and that's why we're doing it in-house.
Yes.
What I'm suggesting is I want to understand, what are we not saving? You know, what are we actually paying to other agencies that we could do in-house for the town that says that's worth, it saves us. We don't spend any more money by hiring a person to do that, and we improve our response time.
Well, I'm not asking for a new person. I'm asking to fill the position that's already there. I'm not asking for anybody.
Yeah, you're asking for an increase for that
Yeah,
position.
that, I am that.
Yeah.
You're saying that right now it's advertised at 22,
22.5 is the max that position can pay.
what should it pay in your opinion?
Well, I like to take it to 26 if I could. I've asked to raise the position up to 28. Doesn't mean I'm gonna go there. But like says, like he's asked for, he needs wiggle room. Like you can't bring some, depends on skills and certifications they got. I gotta have some wiggle room. But I'm at, right now, I have to pay that position at 26.10. Right now, to bring it just to that. For the next coming year.
Makes it easy. Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Dan?
Can't follow subject presentation.
Okay.
You know what, I mean, I didn't practice on this.
So Mayor, it's 12. Is lunch
Yeah.
out there? Beth?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to try, we've got 2 more departments. Do you want to go ahead and have lunch? Our lunch is ready. Or do you want to try to get through the others?
Everybody ready for lunch?
Sure.
Okay.
Take a break for lunch, okay.